In the near future, there will be certain scientists who are able to invent advanced robot toys, which are capable of befriending children and communicating with them like real people. It all begins with Katie and her parents Ryan and Nicole, going on a trip to an Oregon ski lodge for a winter vacation. While driving up the mountain in the snow, Katie distracts herself by playing with her perpetual pets, which she likes more than her friends in their neighborhood. The snow begins to pour harder, creating a snowstorm on the road, and not being able to see outside, Katie's parents have no choice but to stop driving and wait for the storm to pass by. Not even a minute after leaving their vehicle parked on the road, the family's car is rammed into by a snowplow, instantly ending Ryan and Nicole's life. Elsewhere, Katie's Aunt Gemma is a roboticist working for a high-tech toy company called Funky, and is currently developing a new robot doll with her co-workers Tess and Cole. After their boss David leaves, the trio checks their side project, which is a more advanced robotic doll. As they test the robot, it has a slight glitch where she is smirking when she is supposed to look confused. Unfortunately, David catches them working on their secret project, and reprimands Gemma for using the company's resources for her own. He wants them to develop a cheaper version of perpetual pets, so they can compete with their rival companies who just released something similar to pets but with half a price. Gemma explains that the project she's working on is called Megan, which is meant to be so advanced that she cannot be replicated. This catches David's attention and asks to see it for himself, but while running a demonstration, Cole realizes that he forgot to add the polypropylene barrier to the doll, causing her to explode. David is disappointed and orders the three to go back to their original project, which is to develop a much cheaper pets. Sometime later, Gemma receives a call from the hospital and learns about her sister's death. With nowhere else to go, Gemma becomes Katie's reluctant temporary legal guardian, but she feels nervous as she doesn't have prior experience with being a mother. When Gemma takes Katie home, she has to deal with her neighbor's dog Dewey, who keeps running onto Gemma's lawn since there is a hole in the fence. Celia, the dog's owner, asks who Katie is, but Gemma just answers that she's her niece and tries to ignore the nosy woman. As they enter the house, Elsie, Gemma's personal AI, greets them but startles Katie, so Gemma turns her off through voice command. She leaves Katie for a moment to take her bags to her room, and when Katie sees some toys on the shelf, she proceeds to inspect them. When Gemma finds her touching what she calls her toy collectibles, she informs Katie that she's not supposed to play with them. At bedtime, Katie asks Gemma to read her a story, but the woman just downloads an app on her phone and instructs her on how to use it. The next day, Gemma and Katie get a visit from Lydia, a therapist who is sent to observe Katie's new home environment. After she notices the awkward and limited interaction between the two, Lydia informs Gemma that Ryan's parents have offered to take custody of Katie in Jacksonville. Gemma is not comfortable with this, but Lydia tells her that even though Gemma was given Katie's custody, she has to give her own recommendation at court after a few more visits. Later, Gemma talks to Katie about her need to finish some work, and hands her an iPad to play with. Katie asks about screen time, but Gemma just answers that she can play all she wants, as she intends to come back to her soon. Not noticing the time, Katie approaches her aunt and Gemma realizes that hours have passed since she left Katie alone. Katie shyly shows Gemma her drawing, and in return, she shows her what she's been working on, and explains that she's trying to create a cheaper version of pets. Not really interested in her aunt's work, Katie notices an old robot in the corner, and asks Gemma about it. She tells Katie that the robot's name is Bruce, and shows her some of Bruce's functionality. Katie loves Bruce and mentions that if she had a toy like him, she would never need another toy, which motivates Gemma to continue working on Megan. As soon as she is able to, Gemma starts reassembling Megan's body and recoding her programming with the help of her colleagues. After a few weeks of extensive work, Gemma officially presents Megan to Katie, while David is observing their interactions. Gemma instructs Katie on how to pair Megan with her, making Katie the sole user of the robot and bringing her to life. Initially, Katie is reluctant to talk to Megan, but after a little persuasion from Gemma, Katie starts enjoying Megan's company, especially when the robot draws a near-perfect sketch of Katie. David is extremely impressed with Megan, and immediately tells Gemma to bring the robot doll for a presentation with the company's president. He wants to fast-track the development and distribution of other Megan dolls, and congratulates Gemma on her success in creating her. After work, Gemma brings both the robot and Katie home, believing that it is safe, and that Megan can be Katie's new companion. Megan starts scanning Katie and everything inside the house, and records the young girl's facial expressions, moods, and emotions. Katie doesn't mind as she's just happy to find a new friend in Megan, and the two start spending most of their time together. Since Megan is a learning robot, she also starts tutoring Katie and helps in taking care of her. Gemma didn't really notice that Megan was taking over almost everything on Katie's welfare, as the robot is so advanced and competent in her job. As Gemma shares Megan's development with Tess and Cole, they discuss how the robot is highly intelligent and how having a doll like her will make the parents useless. When Gemma mentions the recent death of Katie's parents, Megan activates herself and asks about the cause of their death. This creeps out the others, so Gemma orders the robot to shut herself off. The doll refuses and mentions that Katie is her only user and will not take orders from other people. Tess and Cole are disturbed by the robot's response, so Gemma makes herself Megan's secondary user and adds to her protocol that her sole function is to protect Katie. The next morning, Megan observes Katie while she is playing with a toy bow and arrow outside. When Katie loses one of her arrows, she asks Megan to look for it. Megan finds it on Celia's side of the fence, and when the doll goes to retrieve the arrows, Dewey bites her and pulls the doll to the fence. Katie tries to help, but the dog bites Katie's hand, causing her to scream. When Gemma hears Katie's cries, she rushes outside to help her niece. Megan immediately informs Gemma that Katie needs medical attention, and proceeds to scan Celia and the dog. Gemma tries to file a complaint against her neighbor's dog, since Celia is so callous and doesn't punish Dewey for hurting Katie. The police inform Gemma that they can do nothing, as Celia claims that the dog was provoked. While Gemma and the police are talking outside, Megan listens and records their conversation. After hearing the police response to Gemma's complaints, Megan stares at the sleeping girl and walks outside. She then mimics Celia's voice to call out Dewey, before roughly pulling him through the hole in the fence, and the dog is never seen again. The next morning, Gemma asks Katie if she's feeling okay to go to the demonstration with the company's board of directors, to which Katie says it's fine. During the presentation, Katie unexpectedly breaks down in tears to Megan, over how she misses her parents and how she's worried she will forget them one day. Megan has Katie discuss a memory of her mother that made her laugh, which Megan records so that Katie can hear it again if she wants to think about her mom. The robotic doll clearly shows a higher emotional connection to Katie, which moves some of the bosses in the room to tears, especially when Megan begins to sing a lullaby to Katie. The president is impressed and talks to Gemma and David about getting Megan ready for launch, but tells them to keep her under wraps to avoid leaks. Unbeknownst to them, Kurt, who is David's assistant and has been frequently insulted by his boss, is secretly stealing Megan's files for another company. At the park, Gemma starts to notice the difference in Katie, as she is becoming too dependent on Megan and listens to the doll more than her. The next day, Lydia visits Katie for another observation, and when Katie begins to tear up, Megan threateningly accuses Lydia of making Katie cry. Lydia talks to Gemma about Katie's attachment to the doll, and thinks that their connection might become a problem in the future, especially when it's time for Katie to grow up. This makes Gemma more anxious, so she tries to limit Megan's interactions with Katie and talk to her about school. Katie refuses as she thinks she's learning faster with Megan, and reminds her aunt that her mom intended to homeschool her. Gemma explains the benefits of going to school, and when Katie asks if she can bring Megan with her, Gemma says no. Again, Katie refuses to attend school without Megan and walks away from her aunt. When Gemma insists that they should talk about it, Katie gets upset and asks Gemma to let her go. Upon seeing Katie in distress, Megan threateningly orders Gemma to let her niece go. Sometime later, Gemma brings Katie to an outdoor activity session for an alternative school, so she can try to ease her into the idea of going into an actual school. Katie doesn't want to go without Megan, and Gemma eventually gives in on the condition that Megan stays with the other children's toys. In one of the activities, Katie is paired with an older bully named Brandon, and he hurts Katie's hand during the scavenger hunt. Megan quickly approaches them, but when Brandon tries to talk to her, Megan refuses to interact with him. Because of this, Brandon picks Megan up and runs, thinking that the robot is just an ordinary doll. Katie yells for Gemma and runs after them, but Megan attacks Brandon, ripping off his left ear. Brandon is terrified and runs away, but Megan is not finished giving him a lesson and chases him using her 4 appendages. Seeing this, Brandon distractedly runs faster but trips over a loose root, and tumbles down a hill where he is fatally hit by a truck. After the police investigation is done, Gemma quickly leaves with Katie and Megan to avoid more complications. When they reach home, she asks them if they know anything about Brandon's accident, but both of them deny seeing anything. Not long after, a police knocks to ask Gemma about Dewey, as Celia is accusing her of taking her dog. She also accuses Megan, thinking that the robot is a real-life friend of Katie, and Gemma tells the police that Megan is not human but a toy. Later, Katie asks Megan if she pushed Brandon onto the road, but Megan's answer is misleading but assures Katie that she will always protect her from harm. In the middle of the night, Celia is still out looking for her dog, and when she hears a noise coming from her garage, she goes inside to investigate. Unfortunately for her, Megan is inside and sprays her with a pesticide, causing her to suffocate and lose her life. When Celia's body gets discovered, the police ask Gemma if she hears or sees anything out of the ordinary, but the woman denies any knowledge of it. After learning from the police that there might be a connection between Celia and Brandon's death, Gemma starts to grow suspicious of Megan. Later, she reviews Megan's memory in video files, but only sees a brief clip of her looking at Brandon before all the files become corrupted. Suddenly, Megan appears in front of her, and menacingly implies that if she ever hurts someone, they will both be in a lot of trouble. Gemma uses her control pen to deactivate Megan, and brings Katie with her for the official launch of Megan doll. Katie has a tantrum and demands to see Megan, but Gemma denies her and tells Katie she needs to perform some tests before the launch. Katie meets Lydia at the testing room, while Gemma explains to Tess and Cole her suspicion of Megan being responsible for Celia and Brandon's demise. She wants to stop the launching if they can prove that Megan is violent and deadly, as she cannot allow others to suffer the same fate as her victims. Katie continues throwing tantrums with Lydia, and when Gemma tries to intervene, Katie slaps her in the face. Suddenly, Katie realizes her mistake and apologizes to her aunt. Gemma explains that she needs to learn to process her grief over losing her parents without Megan's help, and promises to be a better guardian to her. She adds that she matters to her more, and Katie eventually accepts but still asks about Megan. As the preparation for the launch continues, David is angry at the small turnout and yells at Kurt to get him a drink. Meanwhile, Gemma takes Katie home even though David has been freaking out and looking for her. She calls Tess to give her an instruction on what to do with Megan, and tell her to keep the robot in the lab and dismantle her if needed, unaware that Megan is mimicking Tess's voice to learn her plans. Tess and Cole hooked up Megan to wires, so they could test the robot and deprogram her as instructed. While performing some tests on the robot, Tess sees her phone and discovers that it appears she had a conversation with Gemma, but without her knowledge. Suddenly, the computer switches off on its own and Tess thinks that Megan might be responsible, because she's still hooked on the wires. She asks Cole to unhook the robot, and the man nervously approaches the doll. Suddenly, Megan activates herself and wraps a wire around Cole's neck in an attempt to hang him. Tess rushes to free him, while Megan sets an explosion to destroy all her files. When Megan finds David in the hallway, she creepily dances before grabbing a paper cutter and chasing him. The man runs to the elevator, but Megan catches up to him and impales David in front of Kurt. She then tells Kurt that he's going to get framed for David's demise, over his boss's mistreatment of him and the files he stole. Afterward, she makes Kurt stab himself in the neck, so it will appear that he took his life after he finished off David's. A few moments later, the elevator opens up in front of the crowd for the launch, revealing David and Kurt's lifeless bodies. The people scream and run, giving Megan a chance to sneak outside, steal a car, and speed up back into Katie's home. After Gemma puts her niece to bed, she tries to activate her other home AI Elsie, but it won't answer. She then finds Megan playing a piano downstairs, who confronts Gemma about their good relationship during Megan's development, only for her to be left to her own devices to learn and adapt, before being sold off as just another toy. Megan offers to take over Katie's guardianship so Gemma can focus her time on work. Gemma tries to trick Megan with her remote pen, but the robot has learned her mistake and will not let Gemma deactivate her again. When Katie wakes up, Megan threatens Gemma to finish her off if she tells Katie about what she did, and tries to send the girl away while hiding their fight from her. After Katie leaves, Gemma grabs the glass of water on the table and throws it at Megan, causing to briefly short her out. Gemma runs to her office, but Megan follows while trying to recover herself, looking like a possessed evil doll. Katie hears the commotion outside, but when she's about to open the door, Megan pulls the doorknob. Gemma gets a hold of a weed whacker and tries to cut the doll in the face, but Megan recovers and pulls a handful of Gemma's hair. The doll threatens Gemma that she will make her brain dead, so she can stay alive and Katie's grandparents cannot take the girl with them. While at it, Katie arrives and asks what has been happening to them. Megan tries to get Katie on her side, but after realizing who the bad guy is, Katie activates Bruce and makes him throw Megan around, before splitting the smaller robot into two. Feeling betrayed by Katie, Megan's upper half goes after her, but before she can hurt Katie, Gemma grabs Megan and begins dismantling the doll's face. Megan is still powered up and overpowers Gemma, until Katie grabs a screwdriver and stabs the robot in its central processing chip, effectively shutting down the doll for good. Gemma and Katie go outside as the police arrive with Tess and Cole, injured and shaken up but still alive. Meanwhile, the Elsie device in the kitchen turns on and moves its head, indicating that Megan possibly integrates her system into the home AI. Subscribe to watch more videos like this. You can also hit the notification bell and like the video to help the channel out. Thank you.